The fall of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest political and military powers in world history. At its peak, it controlled vast territories across Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia, shaping law, culture, and infrastructure that still influence the modern world. However, despite its strength and grandeur, the Roman Empire did not endure forever. It gradually weakened and ultimately fell, marking the end of ancient Rome and the beginning of the medieval era. The fall of the Roman Empire is complex, involving political, economic, military, social, and cultural factors spanning several centuries. This history primarily focuses on the Western Roman Empire, which officially ended in 476 AD, although the Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, persisted for almost another 1,000 years. The rise and peak of Rome. Before discussing the fall, it is important to understand what made Rome so powerful. Founded as a small city in the 8th century BC, Rome grew through conquest and diplomacy to dominate the Mediterranean by the 2nd century AD. Its legions, sophisticated legal system, engineering feats, and efficient administration allowed it to manage an empire covering over 2 million square miles. The Pax Romana, Roman peace, lasting roughly from 27 BC to 180 AD, was a period of relative stability and prosperity. During this time, Rome expanded its infrastructure, trade networks flourished, and the arts and sciences advanced. However, the seeds of decline were already sown beneath this veneer of stability. Structural weaknesses and growing pressures from both within and outside the empire gradually undermined Rome's foundations. The internal causes of decline: political instability and corruption. One of the primary internal factors leading to the fall was political instability. From the late 2nd century AD onward, the Roman Empire experienced frequent changes of rulers. Between 235 and 284 AD, known as the Crisis of the 3rd century, the empire saw over 20 emperors come to power, many of whom were assassinated or killed in battle. This constant turnover weakened central authority and led to civil wars and power struggles. The Praetorian Guard, originally the emperor's bodyguards, became kingmakers, assassinating and installing emperors for their own benefit. Corruption was rampant. Government officials often exploited their positions for personal gain, further alienating the populace. As the empire expanded, governing it became increasingly complex and expensive, encouraging bureaucratic inefficiency. Economic troubles. The Roman economy faced severe challenges during the late empire. Heavy taxation to fund the military and administration burdened farmers and merchants. Agricultural productivity declined due to overworked land and lack of innovation. Trade networks were disrupted by internal strife and barbarian incursions, reducing the flow of goods and wealth. Inflation became rampant after emperors began minting coins with less silver content, reducing currency value and causing price instability. Rome's dependence on slave labor, acquired through conquest, also stifled technological advancement. As expansion slowed, fewer slaves were brought in, and economic stagnation followed. Social decline and class divisions, social cohesion, deteriorated as wealth concentrated in the hands of a few elites, while the majority faced poverty. The growing divide between rich and poor led to social unrest and reduced loyalty to the empire. Urban centers, once vibrant hubs, suffered from neglect and depopulation. Many citizens fled to rural estates owned by wealthy landowners, known as latifundia, who operated almost like feudal lords. Traditional Roman values such as civic duty, discipline, and patriotism declined. The rise of Christianity, which became the state religion under Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century, changed cultural norms and attitudes toward the state and military service. Military problems and barbarian pressures. Decline of the Roman army. Rome's military had been the backbone of the empire's expansion and defense. However, by the late empire, the legions had become less effective. Several reasons explain this decline. The quality of soldiers decreased as fewer Roman citizens enlisted and more mercenaries or barbarian recruits filled the ranks. These troops often lacked loyalty and discipline. The vast size of the empire made it difficult to defend all frontiers effectively. The empire faced continuous pressure on multiple borders simultaneously, from Germanic tribes in the north to Persian forces in the east. The army's costs became unsustainable, leading to cuts in pay and supplies, which further undermined morale. Barbarian invasions and migrations. One of the most immediate causes of the fall was the invasion and settlement of various barbarian tribes within Roman territories. These tribes were often Germanic peoples such as the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, Franks and Burgundians. Pressure from the nomadic Huns from Central Asia forced many of these tribes westward into Roman lands during the 4th and 5th centuries AD. The Romans initially tried to manage this through treaties and federati arrangements, allowing barbarian groups to settle as allies within the empire. However, this policy backfired as these groups often rebelled or acted independently. Key barbarian events: Battle of Adrianople, 378 AD. The Visigoths, led by Fritigern, defeated a Roman army and killed Emperor Valens. This defeat revealed the weakness of Roman military power and emboldened other tribes. Sack of Rome, 410 AD. The Visigoths, led by King Alaric, sacked Rome, the first time in 800 years that the city fell to a foreign enemy. Although Rome was no longer the empire's capital, this event shocked the Roman world and symbolized the empire's decline. Vandal sack of Rome, 455 AD. The Vandals, under King Genseric, captured and looted Rome again, further demonstrating Rome's vulnerability. Deposition of Romulus Augustulus, 476 AD. Often considered the official end of the Western Roman Empire, this last emperor was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer, who declared himself ruler of Italy. The division of the Roman Empire. In 285 AD, Emperor Diocletian divided the empire into eastern and western halves to improve governance and defense. Each half had its own emperor and administrative systems. The Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, was wealthier, more urbanized, and better defended. The Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome and later Ravenna, was poorer, more rural, and faced greater military pressure from barbarian groups. While this division initially strengthened imperial control, it also created political rivalry and competition for resources, weakening the unity of the empire. The role of Christianity. Christianity's rise significantly altered Roman society. Emperor Constantine's conversion and the Edict of Milan, 313 AD, which legalized Christianity, shifted the empire's religious landscape. The Christian Church grew powerful, establishing its own hierarchy and influence. Some historians argue that the Church's emphasis on spiritual salvation reduced the traditional Roman values of loyalty and military service. The Church also preserved Roman knowledge and culture during the chaotic period that followed, becoming a unifying institution in post-Roman Europe. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. A chronology, 3rd century crisis, 235 to 284 AD. This century-long period was marked by political chaos, economic depression, plague, and invasions. The empire nearly collapsed, but was temporarily stabilized by Emperor Diocletian. Reforms of Diocletian and Constantine Diocletian's reforms improved administration, taxation, and the army, but increased bureaucratic complexity and oppression. Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople and further Christianized the empire. The Huns and barbarian pressure, 4th or 5th century. The migration and invasions of barbarian tribes accelerated due to the Hunnic expansion. Rome's borders were under continuous threat. Sack of Rome, 410 AD. Alaric's Visigoths captured and plundered Rome, a symbolic blow to imperial prestige. Final collapse, 455-476 AD. Rome was sacked again by the Vandals in 455 AD. Over the following decades, barbarian kingdoms established control over former Roman territories. In 476 AD, Romulus Augustulus was deposed, marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Byzantine Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire survived and flourished, preserving Roman law, culture, and administration. It became a center of Orthodox Christianity and Greek culture. The Byzantines managed to reclaim parts of the West under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, but ultimately lost those gains to new powers. Consequences of the fall, the rise of medieval Europe. With the fall of centralized Roman authority, Europe fragmented into smaller kingdoms. The feudal system emerged, with local lords governing lands in exchange for military service. Preservation and transformation of Roman heritage. Roman law, language, Latin, and culture persisted through the Church and in kingdoms like the Holy Roman Empire. Economic and cultural shift. Trade declined, cities shrank, and literacy rates fell during what is called the Dark Ages. However, new cultural syntheses eventually arose, blending Roman, Christian, and barbarian traditions. Effects of Rome's political instability. Political instability was one of the most damaging internal factors that contributed to the fall of the Roman Empire. The frequent changes in leadership, corruption, and power struggles severely weakened the empire's ability to govern effectively and respond to crises. 1. Frequent leadership changes and civil wars. During the 3rd century AD, especially in the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 AD, Rome suffered from rapid succession of emperors, often dozens within a few decades. Many were military generals who seized power through force rather than legitimate succession. This cycle of assassinations and usurpations led to continuous civil wars, diverting resources and manpower from defending the empire's borders. The instability made it difficult to maintain consistent policies or long-term planning, leaving the empire vulnerable to external threats and internal decay. 2. Erosion of central authority. With so many rival claimants to the throne, central authority eroded. Provincial governors and military commanders sometimes acted independently or declared themselves emperor, fragmenting imperial control. As a result, loyalty to the emperor weakened among both officials and the military. This fragmentation weakened Rome's ability to unify its resources to deal with invasions, economic troubles, or social unrest. 3. Administrative inefficiency and corruption. Political instability bred corruption and incompetence in the imperial bureaucracy. Officials focused on enriching themselves or securing power rather than effective governance. Corruption undermined tax collection, legal enforcement, and public services. This contributed to economic decline and public discontent, further destabilizing the empire. 4. Undermining military effectiveness. The army, once fiercely loyal to Rome, became a tool for political factions. The Praetorian Guard and other military units often played kingmaker roles, supporting or assassinating emperors for their own gain. This politicization of the military decreased discipline and effectiveness. Troops were less motivated to defend the empire and more likely to engage in power struggles. 5. Loss of public confidence and social cohesion. Political chaos diminished citizens' trust in the government and the imperial system. Without confidence in leadership, social cohesion weakened. Traditional Roman values like civic duty and patriotism declined, eroding the social fabric that had held the empire together. This made it harder to mobilize the population in defense or public projects. If you found this video informative, Donny T, forget to give it a like and share it with others who might find it helpful. And if you love history like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.